All right, let's jump right into a question that honestly a lot of people have wrestled with for a long, long time. Was God's plan always meant for everyone, globally? Or was bringing non-Jewish people into the fold some kind of plan B? It's a huge question, and we're going to unpack it. I mean, when you read the Bible, it's pretty clear the spotlight is on one nation for a huge chunk of the story, Israel. So it's totally natural to ask, hey, what about everybody else? Were they just an afterthought? A side plot in the main drama? Let's get right into that. Well, the short answer and the whole point of our time together today is a huge no. The idea that the Gentiles, that is, all the non-Jewish nations, were some kind of backup plan, it's just not what the text shows us. It was actually part of the original blueprint from the very, very beginning. So, how are we going to walk through this? Well, we've got a roadmap. First, we'll look at a promise that was made for everyone. Then we'll get practical and see the actual pathways to belonging that existed. After that, we'll check out some real-life examples from the story, understand a really key shift in method. This is important. And finally, we'll see how it all clicks together into one single continuous plan. Okay, first up, a promise for everyone. And look, the proof for this global plan isn't hidden away in some obscure footnote. It's actually right there, front and center, in the Old Testament. Let's go way, way back to the very beginning, to the promise God makes with Abraham. In Genesis chapter 12, verse 3, God tells him this, "In you all the families of the earth will be blessed." I mean, listen to that language. It's not subtle. It's about all the families of the earth right from the get-go. And this isn't just a one-off idea. This theme just keeps popping up. Hundreds of years later, you have the prophet Isaiah describing what Israel's true purpose is. In Isaiah chapter 49, verse 6, God says Israel is to be a light for the nations, that my salvation may reach to the end of the earth. Their mission was always meant to be global. So what does all this mean? It means Israel's special role was never about being an exclusive club. They were chosen to be a means to an end, not the end itself. The whole ideal was for God's blessing to flow through them to reach the rest of the world. Okay, that's the big idea. But you might be thinking, how did this actually work? If the invitation was open, what were the practical steps? Could someone from the outside really join? Let's take a look. And this wasn't just a vague, hey, you're welcome here kind of thing. No, the Old Testament law actually laid out really specific, concrete ways for foreigners to become part of the community. They could go through circumcision, taking on that physical sign of the covenant. They could fully participate in the Passover, which was Israel's most important festival. And, this is huge, the law said they had to be given the same legal rights as native-born citizens. The point is, this wasn't some kind of second-class citizenship. The laws were designed for full, real belonging. It was, in a word, full covenant participation. So, we have the promise and we have the laws. But did this stuff actually happen? I mean, did it play out in real life? Oh yeah, let's look at some amazing examples right from the story itself. The Bible is actually full of these stories if you look for them. When Israel left Egypt, a whole mixed multitude of non-Israelites went with them. Then you have Rahab, a Canaanite woman from the enemy city of Jericho, who was not only saved, but brought right into the nation. And maybe the most famous example of all, Ruth, a woman from Moab, who doesn't just join Israel, she becomes the great-grandmother of King David himself. It's incredible. You see, these aren't just weird one-offs or anomalies. They're powerful, living illustrations of a standing invitation that was always there. Okay, so if the plan was always inclusive, then what in the world changed between the Old and New Testaments? Because clearly something shifted. This is a really crucial point, and it all comes down to a change in method. Think of it like this. The Old Testament model was centripetal, like a force pulling things inward, toward a center. The idea was for the nations to come to Israel, to the temple in Jerusalem. But the New Testament model flips that. It becomes centrifugal, like a force pushing things outward from the center. Now, the message goes out from believers to all the nations. The center isn't a physical place anymore. It's the message itself. So let's be crystal clear about this. The goal of including everyone, that never changed. That was constant. What changed was the how. The method shifted. Now it was about direct inclusion through faith in Christ, and you didn't have to become culturally and religiously Jewish first to be a part of it. All right, let's pull all these threads together now and see the big picture, this one continuous plan as it unfolds. This really gets to the heart of it. There's this common misconception that goes something like, well, Israel failed, so God had to pivot and turn to the Gentiles as a plan B. But the reality, the actual story is so much better. The reality is that God is simply bringing his original intention to its fulfillment, bringing the nations in and doing it through Israel's own Messiah. And the New Testament is so explicit about this connection. Listen to what the Apostle Paul says in his letter to the Romans, chapter 15. He explains that Christ's work was twofold. First, to confirm the promises given to the patriarchs, and second, in order that the Gentiles might glorify God for his mercy. See how that works. Jesus fulfills the promises to Israel, and in doing so, he throws open the floodgates of that blessing to the entire world. So it was never plan A and plan B. It was always one single, grand, unfolding story, a story that had a global purpose right from the very beginning. And that leaves us with a pretty big thought to chew on. If it was always one story, how does that change the way we see the world and our place in it today?